The universe is always talking. Your soul is always giving you important information. We think that our depression, anger, memories are bad things, but it's not. It's our soul telling us, knock, knock. There's things we got to deal with, things we got to integrate, paths we need to go back to and then go forward in the future. So if you sit there and you just listen, all the answers come through, not the answers your ego want, but the answers of where you need to pivot into, find your purpose, and realize again who you truly are beyond all the programming that has created these false selves that most of us are. I still am, and help you deprogram. So that's a realization too, is when to just sit still and do it.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I have an incredible guest here today that's on a conscious exploration, just as we all are. I want to welcome to the podcast today, Miguel Conner. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, you're deep diving in your own sort of expression of consciousness and your YouTube channel. I'd love you to just share with the audience a little bit about yourself leading up to this very conversation.
Well, linear time. Let's look at linear time. I've always been a seeker, so I've always looked at the bigger questions of life, always felt like an outcast. Sometimes went to places I shouldn't have gone, but they were, I guess, instructional in hindsight. And these days, I am the host of AM by Gnostic Radio, tries to bring ancient Gnostic mysteries to a modern meaning. And I'm also a writer, content creator, dad, Elvis fan, several things that are part of this illusionary narrative that is the person that I am.
Wow. Bam, blammo, right to it. 1, 2. I love this. And Elvis, have just on a side note, the audience is probably like, he said, Elvis, what has this got to do with consciousness? Have you been to Graceland?
Mm-hmm. I have indeed. Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, it's an interesting realization. My love affair with Elvis, it didn't end there, but it almost did, because at that time, there was a moment where you stay at this place called the Heartbreak Hotel across the street from Graceland. And right. It's literally, when I went there decades ago, you take your life in your own hands. I don't know what it's like right now, but
pretty hardcore. Memphis is hardcore, yes.
Yeah.
I lived in Chicago, and Memphis is even more intense.
It was wild. The only thing outside of Graceland at that point that was really a stopping point was the local pawn shop, and whether you could pick up something more organic to the environment, which was like a used PlayStation or something of that nature. That was about it.
Yeah.
So you're stuck with that, or just pursuing. I actually did look into a couple of churches there. I sort of hooked up on a couple of churches on the weekend, which was kind of cool. Different vibe. Love it to death. So you've got this podcast, and you know, through your own confessions, you're just exploring. And so what does it mean to you, gnosis, Gnostic sort of like realization? What does that really mean to you? Is it embody all things, or is there a specific path that you're focusing on?
Well, one of the interesting, I don't want to say dirty secrets of Gnosis, is that it's not exclusive to Gnosticism. This was something that was discussed by many of the ancients in Alexandria, the Hermeticists, Neoplatonists, even Christians, the idea of Gnosis, which is sort of a direct experience with the higher worlds, and also an inner journey to self-knowledge. And they're both kind of the same journeys. I would say that the Gnostics would say that, but we also have part of the Gnosis is to deconstruct the false coded reality around us and see and experience reality for what it is. So I would say that's it. I mean, I would separate it from the mystical experience. As some have said, mysticism is kind of passive. You just sit there and take it. With gnosis, especially in those cats that I like in ancient Alexandria, is all about, no, I am taking this astral flight, whether I'm a Merkabah Jew or Neoplatonist or Gnostic or I've read certain texts like the Chaldean oracles or whatever, and I am going straight to the divine to find answers, to find experiences, and so forth. So it's shamanistic, I think, at its core. I think that's the part many modern Gnostics miss, many modern occultists miss, many truthers. I mean, go down the line, is that it is shaman. It is about altering your consciousness, having an ecstatic experience, and then getting that healing medicine, baby.
Well, that's it. You sure you're not pursuing Taoism? I'm not sure. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's to
Because
say, I
that's
mean,
really the same thing, right? It's like it's
yeah,
all in that same vein. And a lot of people. I had a guy on the podcast recently, and he spent about 30 years pursuing a lot of like masters within energetic processes throughout the world. And I've studied under many myself, and I teach people this sort of like internal alchemy processes. So you can separate electric from magnetic, create physical healings, all the kind of superhuman stuff you see in the average Avengers episode, but it's very real when you focus your intention to stuff. I think people get lost on that stuff where, hey, this stuff is like, it's all in my head. I like it. It's really entertaining. I can read about it. And I think that's the issue that a lot of people have, is they intellectualize things to a degree that they can never enter the intuitive aspect of that, which is in my definition of gnosis is knowing, internally knowing, the expression of that feeling, right? I always say people, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And so that feeling is sort of evidence based by being able to take, a spell, some sort of magical like incantation, a sigil, whatever, and construct it so that it has an altering effect within this 3D reality. And that comes from a resonance that you transmit, you sink into. And I always tell people everything's energy. Energy has a vibration, and that has a frequency. And if you can access that frequency, then you can realize it. Bag of money, hot girlfriend, charmed life, whatever it is. And I think that's really the premise of how people sort of hand over this whole manifestation sort of revolution that we're having right now. We're seeing within social media, within spirituality, this sort of cyclical thing, spirituality, atheism, religion. We kind of go through it, and people seem to forget. It's almost as if like we're back in 1990 and everyone's going, oh my goodness, the musical prophet. I haven't seen anything like this since Mozart. Vanilla Ice is a genius. I mean, that kind of, what I'm saying? It's like people forget. And I think through your exploration, you and I are experiencing this energetic charge right now. We're getting a palpable sort of chill up our physical bodies. And that is a representation of energetics. And you go, how do you know this? Well, first of all, I see it because I look at auras and energies and I feel it. So these are all sensory perceptions that we develop as skills. And so what are your thoughts on that? Through your discovery, what do you gravitate to mostly when it comes to your knowing this as being your true path?
Well, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, we have to take that chariot. We have to take that road to Damascus, whatever you want to call it, to find the answers. I think for me too, and I think Taoism would certainly agree about experiencing the Tao. I guess the Gnostics would call it the pleroma. Jung always said it's like a light flowing through a balloon. We're stuck on the balloon, but that light is always flowing through. It's there. Or the Gospel of Thomas says, yes, when you have to lift the veil and you realize the kingdom of God was all around you the whole time. It was your, whatever you call it, it was perception, your archons, whoever you want to blame, have fun. But once you lift that up, that's where the real bliss is. And it always talks about in the Gospel of Thomas and other places, it calls it like a movement and a meditation. It's a knowing when to act. I think thinking of Kenny Rogers, the gambler. You got to know when, it's a movement and a meditation. Yeah. Great song. And even when you look at Hermeticism and other of those Alexandrian tradition, those post-Egyptian mystery movements, it is the Hierophant will say, okay, do this. No, stop. No, be quiet. Listen. Then let's do some prayer. He's taking you on this sort of rhythmic voyage, and you learn not only the experiences, but you learn that it's so important to quiet yourself. I had this sort of like fridge magnet realization or bumper sticker thing last summer while I was out in the woods and I was doing all these rituals to Artemis, because I realized, if you're going to go for a goddess, go for the most dangerous goddess in the history of Western thought. Well, I think there's maybe a couple other exceptions, maybe Kali or some of the others, but I realized enlightenment is simply listening. And I thought, well, and it just came to me, and I realized it is so true, because the universe is always talking. Your soul is always giving you important information. We think that our depression, anger, memories are bad things, but it's not. It's our soul telling us, knock, knock. There's things we got to deal with, things we got to integrate, paths we need to go back to and then go forward in the future. So if you sit there and you just listen, all the answers come through, not the answers your ego want, but the answers of where you need to pivot into, find your purpose, and realize again who you truly are beyond all the programming that has created these false selves that most of us are. I still am, and help you deprogram. So that's a realization too, is when to just sit still and do it. So for me, meditation is essential. I don't even know why I meditate. I have no expectations. I just, as they say, I just shut up and sit down. And other tools too, and it can be anything. I mean, the tarot, walking through the woods, listening to music. There's a billion tools you can use out there that will help you listen to everything that is there for your taking already.
Oh yeah, amen to that, brother. Amen. Because it really does. It for a Taoist, we sort of get to cut straight to the chase. So the first thing we do is realize your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And people are like, what? And here's another one, heads up, all thoughts of your mind are not yours. What? Oh yeah. And if you have to learn it, you don't know it. If you know it, you don't have to learn it. What? And just go bang, 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 bang. And now let's get down with the get down. And so people start going, what? And the energetics, and I find that is the thing that you connect with almost immediately. Once you start to cultivate these subtleties and they become really apparent to you, you can start moving things around like icons on a screen. And that stillness that you're speaking of becomes more apparent. So then you can identify with things. So when I get right into it, cutting the mustard for the emotional content is that, as my dear friend, a Buddhist monk would say, the dukkha, the distortion is all he's looking for. He's looking for the distortion. And that's the emotional content. That's really the deceptive over here, not over here. Hang on a second. You really want to believe that the reason you're afraid is because of that horror movie you're watching, or maybe you're in a bad mood because your neighbor, gave you the bird because your dog shit on his lawn. I mean, it's all misdirection. It's all deception. And within Taoism, that's kind of like a big thing.
Very true. Elvis was into Taoism. He was into everything. He actually had I don't have it with me because it's in my book that I'm having published. And he had a Taoist quote that he held on to. I forgot what the quote is. I'll have to look it up. So no, I agree 100% with what you said.
And I mean, it's just a facet, like as the Taoists would say, it's a facet of a diamond. Diamond is consciousness, right? And just looking at another facet of that one diamond that we're all looking through. You say tomato, I say tomato. We're all coming to that realization. The more you level up, and it really comes from that somatic, visceral, kinesthetic thing. You're having that moment. It's like, oh, as a friend of the channel would say, Hans Wilhelm, it's either you're contracting or expanding. Let's just cut to the chase. What is making you move towards it, or is what is making you move away from the experience you're having? And so that kind of dilutes a lot of the mastery of internal like practices, but that's the truth. And when you can really be observer, first person, third person, no person, then all of a sudden you can really have an experience where you're generally being able to, within Taoism, we talk about instant manifestation, instant physical healing, and instant like magic. And magic is really a deeper understanding of the nature of how to move the energy. What's the environment that you're in? You're creating the architecture so that you can oscillate and resonate at the highest point to obtain whatever it is that you're looking for from the universe. I mean, the universe doesn't have a moral compass. If you understand how to move those energies, all of a sudden things will be realized. They'll be like, why is that asshole got $1 million, a hot girlfriend, a Lamborghini? And he's an asshole. Listen, I've come across so many people that are not evolved, but have acquired energetic practices to create whatever it is that they want. And I think that's sort of like the premise of how people are selling the manifestation sort of template these days in 2024. But then you're not evolving. For me, the conscious collective is raising everyone up. And I think I had a friend of the channel, Alexis from Ascension Diaries, she reads into Schumann resonance, right? So the Schumann resonance goes deeper, and she's seeing quite a clear correlation. And when you understand your heart is the earth is you, all this kind of good stuff, all is one is all, this transmission of this electromagnetic field is very relevant in the human's brainwaves. So she's like looking at, oh my goodness, okay, it sort of like resonates at 7.83, I think it is, hertz on average, but then it can ripple and change an effect where she can see on certain days there's some outside source that's manipulating the brain waves, and now the earth is at like 13 to 18, 20. So what does that mean to the audience? It means that you're high beta. You're just like, you're high myopic, high anxiety, add a coffee, add some stress, and you are going to be off to the races. You're going to have a shitty day is what's going to happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, pretty complex. I think when I wake up in the morning, I think it's pretty simple. I do I do the Stoic idea, and it's all, you find that also in Sufism. I said, today I'm going to die. Simple. Then I realized, oh shit, all my problems kind of feel small. I mean, this is it. This is the day I spend time with my children, pet my dogs, have my last cup of coffee. And as strange as it sounds, it makes life richer. It's what the Stoics said, memento mori, remember death. I think that's the other thing about Taoism and Gnosticism is we never marginalize the darkness, the evil. We know it's right there staring at us in the face, as is the light. Most religions have to like suppress and everything's going to be all right. And you know what I mean? And create into this cognitive dissonance with these traditions is like, oh man, I am an ant in both the light and the dark. The light is powerful too, and it demands from you is going to crush you like an ant. And it's a great feeling. It's freedom. That's what I feel. Freedom and honesty.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. You're right. You know, within Taoism, we always go, remind the man mortality is real. Mm-hmm. And then we go even further than that. It's like, remind the man who's never left his village, let him know he's seen the world. Because it's all here. It's all here. It's right here, baby.
It is. I mean, the more enlightened, or I don't know what to call it, but I have friends who are very wealthy and have what we call successful lives. And they ask me to do this. And sometimes I'm like, no, I think I'm just going to go for a walk in the woods and sit there and meditate. And I find it 1,000 times more rewarding than, hey, let's go to the Caribbean and do this. I'm like, no, this is, I wish you could see and experience what I see, like Roy Batty and Blade Runner. I have seen things you people, but then I realized they're at their stage, I'm at my stage, and I'm just very happy to be able to just exist.
Yeah, you kind of get in the game and you go, holy crap, this is more than what it seems. And that's the first taste. That's where you got to start. I mean, everyone starts somewhere. It's like you're behind the starting line, in front of the starting line, you're somewhere. But the level up moment goes beyond, Steve Jobs going, oh my goodness, it's brighter than I thought it was. Some one-liner that he came up with just before he entered into his next experience. That was the last words of the infamous Steve Jobs. I'll say infamous.
Oh, wow.
Infamous in the sense of I met him quite a few times, and unfortunately, he's not godlike. But anyway, that's another story.
No. I think I would put him on the side of darkness any day of the week.
Yeah. I mean, and so let's talk a little bit about the Magick, because Magick is such an incredible processes in any different sort of indigenous practice. You were speaking of, you were going through some rituals with a specific god that you were working with, or spirit. And, within Taoism, when you go to the deep roots of Taoism started from channeling. That's where it started, like
really?
the deep roots of it. Now, when we go even further, the infrastructure, the Chinese infrastructure that you know today, which is in Chinese culture, was created by the Yellow Emperor. And he got his direct source information from the Jade Emperor and or the universe. And so the universe is really giving him a direct source, just as Lao Tzu, who's my teacher, you say, I had an epiphany. I sort of realized who I was in many past lives, 30 years ago. And I've been channeling very confidently and enjoying true source information for about 30 years. And so Lao Tzu is my teacher. He's with me at all times. I'm not having a psychotic episode. I have profound insights of information that is not mine. I am as dumb as a bag of rocks. I don't claim to be a genius of any kind, but the information comes from this very vessel, and it becomes realized. So you go past the stuff that I get taught as an ordained priest in 2 lineages of Taoism. There's that stuff, and that's the stuff that's the misdirection. This is where people get all caught up in the academics and the intellectual side. It's like, well, this is the ritual. This is, until you experience it and it's experiential and it's validated by you, it's nothing much but a bunch of words on a piece of paper that literally you could set on fire and never see again. It wouldn't make a difference. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, again, magic is a word like gnosis or God. It is problematic because it has so many definitions. You've got, the Crowley definition, causing change in consciousness according to the will. You've got other forms of magic, parlor magic and so for Goetia. And I mean, I like definitions that Gordon White had, which is simply becoming a co-creator with the universe. And I know Tobias Churton also said that's the same thing with gnosis. So I like that one. And of course, I mean, scholars are going to scholar and people are going to experience things. There's room for both. So I don't get too worried. I'm grateful for scholarship, but I also know I'd rather just hang out with some mystics too at times.
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to that. For me, whatever you speak on, show me. I'll take the Pepsi challenge with anyone on this shit. And that's really what it comes down to. You and I love this because I think we're pretty much from the same generation. We love certain points in time, and 70s, 80s, they're magical decades of pop culture that I definitely resonate with, and it's just part of just who I am. But you get down with realizing that it all comes down to the experience. And I always remind people, your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. Forget about what John Smith says or Mary Lou or, the enlightened expression of the reincarnation of bubbly, whatever it is. It has to be able to be validated by you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's your life. Yeah, I really don't have anything else to say about that. Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because there are these groups of thought where they get into, and I'm exactly where you are in appreciating there are a million ways up the mountain. I always remind people, the second you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. And sort of that's like that fine line where people get into certain constructs that are shaping their reality. And then, we get into the magic. For the magic, for me, I kind of got to a certain point in my journey where I'm doing things that were out of the scope of what was exciting me. So what excites me is witnessing physical healings. That excites me. Watching someone be transformed mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that excites me. So, I got a hit of the spiritual crack pipe 30 years ago where I witnessed something that was a miracle, watching physical flesh transmute back from a gangrenous state to a pink in color in 40 minutes. And I was like, I'm done. That's it. I'm hooked. Whatever it is, tell me whatever it is. And so that was a relationship that I had an epiphany while channeling Latsu. And then I got deeper into it. And this is sort of like goes deeper my path as a priest. And then beyond that expression, because you want to be able to, the internal alchemy of Taoist practices, energetics, in my opinion, is still second to none. A lot of people talk about it, but most of the fragmented stuff that's out there is just nonsensical. It's kind of garbage, and people never really bear fruit from it. And that's why they go, oh yeah, it's all myths, it's all stories. It doesn't mean anything. Well, a story and a myth can become realized, but generally speaking, you want a validation. You want to get your hands in there. You want to be able to mold it. You want to be able to shape it. And that's one thing that we're really good at, is getting that connectivity where it's palpable and you want to be able to touch it. Now, what do you do for your practices in relation to that expansion? I know you talk about just being present, and today is the day, and that is so powerful. That's in my opinion, that's how I acquire physical healings, is that present moment. I'm first person, third person, no person. And that's the only way you can acquire that state. Do you have like a go-to sort of like energetic practice, or that's not so important to you?
I have several actually. Yeah, and these change, and I tweak them, and they all revolve around self-knowledge. That's pretty much it, because again, my soul, the gods, whatever you want to call it, has all the answers of where I need to go. I mean, there's a saying that Carl Jung said, that free will is doing exactly what I need to be doing right now. So he's saying there's two choices. There's what you need to be doing, and then there's pain that goes along from us resisting what we want to do. And our ego has a projection, because our ego deals with reality and what our lives should be. But there's another destiny that we have, and our egos may not like it. It could be, open a goat farm. It could become a inner city teacher. It could be, be a rock star or great. It doesn't matter. But that is what is meant for you to participate in the healing of the universe. So I try to align myself with the energies, with the gods, and these change, and everybody's different. People get frustrated because they go, well, what in Gnosticism, in Gnosticism, what are the rules? I said, there's no listicle, BuzzFeed listicle. You'll never, because they were like Taoists, they were anarchists at heart. They were just shamans. They were they believed in community and energy and fellowship. But at the end of the day, you're an individual. You are unique. So what works for you might not work for others. So, for example, meditation is very important to me. I do the I Ching every day. I'm a novice, but for some reason I need that check-in with the universe, that kind of conversation with the unconscious and the symbols and and so the I Ching works for me. Some people like astrology, some like tarot, whatever rocks your boat. I do dream therapy. I do a lot of self-hypnosis, different types of prayers and mantras that I do either in the woods or here. When I can, I like to participate in any type of religious activity. I don't care if it's Catholic Mass or anything like that, just to create an egregore and get that energy, that alchemy to open the channels. For me, that's worked best, though, which is hard, is that I love ayahuasca ceremonies with a good shaman. But unfortunately, that's something I only do maybe once a year or once every 2 years. But for me, it's helped, because that's sometimes as a man, my channels are very hard. So sometimes I need that really strong, powerful kick. And ayahuasca has done that and offered me, again, astral travel, past lives, all the really, mystical denouement that I need in my life. So, and of course, again, I change things as they come.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, whew, it is. It's an interesting sort of like journey that everyone goes on, and they get their epiphany. Would you say you've been on this path your whole life? I mean, for me, I started, in a sort of level of being sort of like ostracized as being different as a child, and then discovering something that would transmute that, because my will to be broken was, I couldn't be broken no matter how physically violated I was as a child within bullying and whatnot. My will was second to the people are like, I just kicked the shit out of you, bro. You need to stay down. And I'm like, is that all you got? You little small expression of a gnat. I mean, I was very articulate. So I twisted words as a young boy that really confused people and made them very frustrated with why is this guy just stay down. And that just didn't happen. So then, of course, I moved into bodybuilding, and I became a power lifter and a bodybuilder from my teenage years, and leading into my journey in my 20s as a priest, doing all this stuff. It just went from taking physical things, crushing them, tossing them. And I had this one moment, like on my journey, I was like, oh, I'm going to find out what this meditation is. From my experience, meditation means Hare Krishnas and like, Gandhi. It doesn't work for me. It's kind of stupid. I don't do yoga, but something is telling me I got to try this out. And so I tried it out, and I sat there like a overgrown ape in some sort of like youth center in the middle of some ghetto at the time. And I thought it was like this grand master was giving me a freebie, basically writing off their 501k or whatever it was, a nonprofit, and they're like putting out meditation, events. And so there's half a dozen misfits. That's what I felt like. I was in this sort of place, and we're in a ghetto. There's noises everywhere, dogs barking, cars screaming, all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm in pain. I can't sit in this lotus position. My back is aching. I'm sort of overgrown. I'm sort of leeching over. And this little tiny grandmaster, this little Asian woman, she's like, now listen to my voice. And I'm like, there is ambulances, there's people screaming, barking, all this stuff outside this youth center that's in some type of ghetto. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get anything out of this from my perception of what I perceived as meditation. And then she goes, listen to my voice and all things will fall away. And I'm like, I listened to her voice, and she started talking like this. And I went, holy shit. Complete silence. And I was like, whatever this is, I'm hooked, because this is unreal. This goes beyond, squatting 800 pounds and deadlifting 500 and doing stupid things and building muscle. This is the answer, man. And so what I'm getting at is I went from a completely physicality based sort of like reality to I'm spiritual. I didn't have any spiritual path. My family didn't lead me towards sort of Jesus or whatever. And I was like, this is it. Did you have that moment yourself?
No, I've always believed or had a spiritual inclination. So did a lot of my family. So, I mean, I've had, of course, yeah, mystical experiences, revelations, and all that, but I can't think of one that really blew me away. So I've had so many, and from UFO experiences to out of bodies, witnessing strange beings, and so forth. So, yeah, I think you don't even have to worry about those, because honestly, I think the daily synchronicities, once you start catching them, that is God talking to you. You don't have to, you can go through life without a mystical experiencing or seeing God or angels. But if you get yourself in a rhythm of the synchronicities going around you, then you realize, oh my God, there is so much more beyond me and beyond this world. Something is coming through and trying to talk to me every second of the day. And obviously people who are more expert at seeing the synchronicities, then it's of course a lot more intense, and it takes practice.
Right. So with that admission and understanding, have you thought of pursuing deeper sort of states of channeling directly or anything of that nature? Have you pursued that, or is
Harder
that
to go deeper than ayahuasca.
right?
8 hours of brutality,
Right.
mystery religion going down to hell. But yeah, if I could, yeah, I would do it every day. That's not even a question. I would rather give my life to that. But I have responsibilities. 5 children, many dogs, many cats, animals, putting food on the table. So I have to take care of that because that's what's been asked for me.
Well, I love that. I knew we were brothers from another mother. I've got 6 kids of my own.
Oh,
They're
okay.
incredible gifts. There's nothing like it. If you want a teacher to level you up and attune yourself to realize that in this same second you would surrender your physical flesh to a higher state for this being that's defenseless, that wants nothing more than your love, then you become a parent, in my opinion. I mean, that's generally the consensus I get from most people that I know are parents, and then some of them perhaps are still finding their way. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
It becomes that sort of messaging of, hang on a second, I don't think I signed up for this. But yes, this is right back to what you're speaking of. The universe is giving you the synchronicities. You've been handed this incredible child for a reason. This is like there are no coincidences. You're being expressed as another moment of realizing what selflessness is, what limitless, unconditional love is.
That is true. That is true. And of course, I think the other issue too is I think that's very important, even though it's very trendy, but it needs to be stressed. Shadow work is very trendy today in esoteric communities, but also ancestral karma, ancestral healing, because I realized at one point it's not just I who need to overcome and integrate my trauma, but I'm also working on behalf of my ancestors to heal all this trauma that's been going on. And this goes right to my children and it will go on. So all this is one line of healing, a narrative. And that's a lot of work, but that also requires going inward, becoming silent and listening to what your ancestors require of you so that the lineage will break through for whatever darkness they might be experiencing.
So when did you come to that realization that it was so necessary for your deep healing, the ancestral part?
Again, it's almost like a voiceless message. Yeah, there's the synchronicities. You start running into things, you put them together, and you're like, oh my God, this is about my grandfather. But then there's this voiceless, again, message that comes out like, I need healing, I need to be addressed. And within these two, they come together and you realize there was a mission and so forth. And then, well, you continue to you acknowledge, as they say today, you tell them you are seen. Please let me know if you have any messages, more or missions for me. That's where the prayer and the humility comes through, bowing to your ancestors. And then it's also the intellectual part, like, oh my God, I'm going to go to ancestry.com, or I'm going to call my family in Portugal, or I'm going to call some uncle, and you start playing detective. What did you think of my grandfather? What do you know? And all of this sort of comes together when it needs to come together. It comes together, but it's a process that takes a lot of time. And then you start realizing all these truths about character defects that your grandfather had and that you have, and missions that they had, and their lives are very much parallel to your life and they've had the same issue, and so forth and so forth. And you go down that rabbit hole, and then, well, you keep waiting for other messages. Again, listen.
Yeah. I mean, this is so simplistic what we're sharing with the audience, but it brings me back to your sharing with us the duality aspect and understanding a deeper nature of that. I mean, ultimately within Taoism, yin and yang is not good or bad. It just they're polarities of energy, but they don't have to necessarily refer to evil. But we do come across that bridge. You know, I mean, I'm steeped in one of my lineages is steeped in and exorcisms, and I've been doing those for 30 years. You know, it's like 30 years ago when someone's coming to me going, hey, you know, I feel like people are telling me I need to admit myself to a psych ward, but I feel like it's something bigger than that. Now, 30 years ago, that was their realization, and an exorcist like myself was a whole different ballgame. Now, I walked into that fresh, like green behind the ears, and people are like, you're crazy, man. Oh, I don't have any fear. That's what my knowing. I'm fearless in my expression of who I am and know what I know. And so some of the people used to tell me you're kind of delusional. There's a lot more to it. Well, look, there's all the stuff that I taught as a priest, and then there's a realization of knowing the true essence of all things. And so when you get deeper into that, the construct of that individual is it's sort of like you're like a magnet drawing these spirits and entities into your experience. And so I always remind people that it's not something to be attacked as like it's just an assassination or a character flaw, but realize that you're resonating with a certain expression. Like I've had students in the past that want to be the big badass exorcist, and when you get down to the get down, they're scared the poop out of themselves when it comes to this stuff. And then when the stuff reveals itself, they shit the bed, proverbially. They do, because it's like it's a much deeper thing. It's their construct. So when you construct this, because this is your reality, this is your belief system, it's sort of like the karmic model is really different within Taoism, understanding that most of, if not all of the magic within Taoism is layered in and fortified through the karmic model of duality. So people are like, hang on a second, what does that mean? Well, it means that I may cast magic that is just to create a certain rippling effect within my stratosphere of my perception of where things are. But it just so happens if you step over this invisible electric wire that I've constructed, it just has a rippling effect within your karmic model. Does that make sense?
Certainly does. In fact, I'm going to burn some sage now. Whenever I have this like rule that I need that a witch told me, if we're going to discuss evil spirits or archons,
all right, there you
don't
go.
play around. Do a little.
There you go.
But yeah, because that's important too. I would say
Right.
we talk about ancestors and what's in our head, and obviously the Gnostics and the Hermetists said, well, we are housed in the universe is housed in us. It's as above, so below, the macro. There's no separation. But we also have to keep in mind open, there are things that go bump in the night, and there are evil spirits. I mean, even Swedenborg, you know, the father of New Age, Mr. Woo-woo positive, you know, he believed in evil spirits. I think 95% of cultures in the world believe in evil gods and evil spirits, and they ain't whistling Dixie. So yeah, it could be mind parasites. You could be attracting some sort of negative forces, and but again, it comes down to listening, doing the rituals, living a good life, and then you can sort of separate the wheat from the chaff with these things. So, and it depends on you. There's a guy who what was his name? But he's a therapist in prisons, and he treats Jerry Marzinski. He's been on my show a few times, and he treats schizophrenics in prison. And he's come to the conclusion that, yeah, they are being affected by some mind parasites. Of course, childhood trauma, abuse, all these things. Of course, when the channels open as a child, you do see into the other worlds, but you also attract things that will break in through the cracks. And his solution has worked so well is just Psalm 23 from the Old Testament. You know that corny, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, you know, but he says it just
death and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, the ancients weren't doing this just because they were bored sitting by the river, right? Or in the, you know, this was magic. It had power, and he realized that has power against demons and mind parasites. So,
Oh, incantations are very powerful if you are in tune with the resonance of what that represents. There's no
yeah.
question. Like,
Yeah, and
you have
your culture helps too. If you were raised in a Judeo-Christian culture, it will give it power.
I mean, I come from a lineage that specializes in that stuff. One of the founders, well, the founder was a badass exorcist, and his direct channel was Latsu. And
Oh,
as
wow.
is my direct channel, Latsu is my teacher. So it's like, you kind of get to a point where, I've seen it all. You want to see, the Hollywood version. A couple of decades ago, I had my mother in a channeling class. I was teaching some students, and she was kind of like, "Oh, I want to partake in that." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And so normally it's a pair. One person is channeling, the other person is taking information or asking questions. So I had about a group of 20 students, and this one student just was obsessed with being the exorcist and would always come in with at least 100 to 200, like what I call stage 5 clingers. So I have to exhume all these energies and, dispel them from the very space. It's very easy to do. Honestly, in all these years, I've only ever come across one entity. It took me about 3 hours to negotiate with this thing. But the reality is they will come back to one thing: love. And so true understanding of the encapsulation of that, and that this person is missing a piece of the puzzle that makes it realize that they bring these energies in and make them very relevant to themselves. And so this particular student was channeling some benign sort of energy that looked at face value something else. Because I can see the auras and the spirit energies shape shifting through the physical body, I was like, no, that's not what's going on here. So I said, here, move aside, let me have a conversation with it. And it went south very quickly. Before you know it, it looked like something out of The Exorcist. She spun around 3 times and threw herself across the room. My mother went, "What the fuck?" And she doesn't swear. And so she freaked out and went, "This stuff is real." I'm like, look, it's all real. It depends on the experience of the individual. The psychotic episode that people would classify as a textbook version of bipolar or schizophrenia is a degree of someone's inability to switch it off. They're in a state where they've accessed a state of awareness that cannot be controlled by their conscious mind. And so, you kind of get into that state. And I would agree with what your friend said, that, there's nothing more powerful, because when you come to healing, the spiritual is the highest. You want to affect change right down to the very, benign sort of like infantile expression, which is your physicality. That's easy healing. That's easy. The spiritual stuff is where you get the job done, and it ripples down like an overflowing glass as it continues to flow down into other levels that would be transmitted as the expression of your physical self. And so, there's a level where if you're playing in duality, which is a state of consciousness, you should be very aware of what it is and how you perceive your reality. But there's a knowing that comes beyond that, and that's through cultivation and realization. And there's a mastery to that. But while you're in that progression, as most people are, you are going to be subject to that very polarizing effect of up and down, in and out, good and bad, left and right. And it's not negative or positive, in my opinion. It just depends on where you're at in your own realization. If you feel you need to protect yourself, that's very important to you. That's your validation of your truth. But understand that as you progress, there's the effect of all is one, one is all. And that means that you can stay in that present moment, and it's now. It's all things. It is, the answer to all things. It is God, universe, Tao. And measuring that actual energy is completely different. It's beyond the electromagnetic fields that we talk about within a 3D reality, and they can't measure it. They, some people might call it a scalar wave, something of that nature, but it's beyond a measurable state, and it's effective because you can access it, and you can access it through forms of magic like incantations, sigils, in our case, talismans, all this type of stuff is very, very palpable. So when he does this, there's his realization, because I mean, he's coming from a left brain sort of processes as a psychiatrist or a therapist or something like, and then he's adding this whole knowing gnosis of an intuitive sort of state where he's moving into these sort of realms of energetics. How is that approached, and how is that received? I mean, is it accepted? Clearly it is from the criminal sort of like what do you call it? Prison institutions. They're completely okay with it. They probably think, oh yeah, he's full of shit. Whatever, let him do what he wants.
Yeah. But he gets results. I mean, it's like,
Exactly.
for example, it is really no secret here in the United States that police departments will use psychics and mediums, and they will solve cases. I had a friend. She was employed by the Chicago Police Department. When things go south, you know the saying, when you're desperate, you go to the witch at the end of the village. When all else fails, and she helped him solve crime. So it's kind of like that. It's sort of a tacit acceptance, but public denial kind of thing. You know how the world is.
Well, I mean, that's literally the life of a Taoist. We've always been the advisor, the Taoist advisor to the emperor of the history of Chinese history. And, they're also the first one to get executed because we don't want someone to have more power than the ruling power. And that was evident in just human history by the genocide of megalomaniacs within the Chinese history timeline that literally decimated millions of their citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And within that was the evacuation and elimination of Taoist practitioners or anything equal to that. And so we're sort of like, we're having a resurgence, a realization, but it's still within a controlled sort of environment. My freedom here, being able to express myself, would not be evident in China. No way. No way. There's no way. It's not going to happen. And so, it's like that type of stuff. And clairvoyance is a great thing. I like to do what I call training people in this sensory perception, and I call it psychic drive-bys, black ops psychic drive-bys. And people are like, how do you do that? It's kind of like, walking up to someone. I live out here in Nevada, Las Vegas. So I teach my kids a lot of this stuff. I taught them at a very young age how to hypnotize people, how to get into that state of consciousness, doing remote viewing, all that kind of psychic stuff, energetics. They're porous. They get into it very quickly, and they get incredible results like in seconds. But one of the fun things is like, hey, let's go and do a street magic day, and we'll go down on the strip, and you'll find a group of people. They all want to have fun. It's like, do you want to feel bliss and complete ecstasy in a fraction of a second? And they're like, yeah, that sounds like fun. And their friends are like videotaping it, and then in the same next sentence is sleep, and their friends are like, and their friend is standing up but passed out. And I'm like, okay, now we're going to erase your name. We're going to take your wallet and keys, and I'm Justin Bieber. And so their friends are like, what's going on? And I'll be like, wake up. And they're like, okay, when are we getting started? And they're like, oh. And then it's like, are you missing something? And this is what we call within your friend's sort of state of like, psychotherapies, the state of reverse hallucination. So they can't see that wallet and keys that I have in my hand, and they're looking at me going, yeah, I think I lost something. What's going on? And like, this is a state of awareness, ladies and gentlemen. And then they can't remember their name, and they're like, oh, it's Justin Bieber. And I look like Justin Bieber for sure. But this is what happens, and you can go out of that state, and their friends are like, oh, how is that possible? Everyone can access this stuff. And the more you focus it's actually not a negative. People need to understand this. Your ability to focus and tune this ability is powerful. And when you realize that, all of a sudden, that's your level up of consciousness. And so, states of awareness, healing, you even go back to you were talking about this sort of like they go to the psychic stuff, and then I do readings, and people are always like, oh yeah, sure, okay, magic man, give me a reading. And I always start at the bottom. This is very, very, very objective. And this is a part that people don't like, is because I just read I can see your aura. So I look at your energy centers. It gives me the excess and deficiency of your emotion to virtue state. And I just read it off like I read a menu. And people get sort of like, holy shit. And it always starts at the bottom. So it's within a Taoist model, there's energetics. The earth is one. And then what someone would conceive as their first chakra would be the root chakra, is the second energy center. By the time I get to the third energy center, which is, the sexual energy, they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You can stop right now. This shit is real. Yes, it is. It's very real. And I'm not invested in it. I'm not looking for you to tell me I'm the next coming of Jesus, or I'm the next Messiah of healing, or whatever. I'm just reading the information. And that's where people get sort of like, how do you do that? Oh, it's a method that's repeatable and you can train in it. It's not something delusional where, oh, it's just a glimpse, or you're having these psychic medium moments. And I'm finding this more evident now, being in this for 30 years. 30 years ago, my hobby was seeking out people that call themselves psychics and sort of eviscerating them. Now, you can go to Yelp and you can find 500 mediums, 500 psychics, 500 healers, 500, and they're legitimate. They can access sources of information that are very palpable, and you're like, holy crap. This is what I think, I believe it's the conscious revolution they're speaking of. And this also refers back to my dear friend Alexis from the Schumann Resonance. And this is something Lao Tzu sort of put into motion when he was telling people. A lot of people, they go, okay, well, what's the prediction for 2024? It's fear, death, and destruction. And he's like, his prediction for 2024 was this simple. He goes, imagine you are a grain of sand asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. And people are like, oh, wow. And I'm like, this is the human experience. You make it all about yourself. The second you step away from this, everything becomes so simplistic. But the resonance, though, is what she was talking about. She said it's going to hit in the next year and a half to 2 years. We're going to be up around 40 to 50 hertz. Now, that in an evidence-based, scientific-based sort of realization, that brainwave is a gamma brainwave, and that's highly conscious. And from when I measure my own brainwaves, when I do healing or channeling or anything, my gamma brainwaves have gone from anywhere from over 40 to up to 400 hertz. And on a spectrum of what we call, this is where I see physical healing. I've measured it. And so when you look at this spectrum, have you heard of this consciousness scale? There's some guy who put it out there. What's his name? I think Stephen Dawson, something like this. He has a consciousness scale where he measures the emotions, and he claims that this is 500 hertz, this is 963 hertz, which is supposed to be the scalar wave, right? All I know is this: once you access that state, that the hertz frequency, all bets are off. You will experience it. Will be evidence-based. But more to the point of the brainwave, when you hit a gamma brainwave, you envelop the whole brain. That means you can access alpha, theta, delta, epsilon while your eyes are awake. And that means you can do this incredible healing of altering traumas, things of that nature that would be sort of contained within the unconscious mind, that people go, well, I need to kind of get into a state where I can jump over what I think a hypnotist would call the critical faculty, the firewall of your mind, something that your belief systems are set in that limit or fortify your perception of reality. And then you step over it, as Miguel was saying, it's like you are now using, self-hypnosis, meditation, prayer to access higher states of awareness. Do you find that is effective for you to heal? Like,
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's no secret. The mind-body connection is scientific. The mind can heal the body, which is what the Hermeticists and the Gnostics were saying 2,000 years ago. So, and of course, you could just read Gabor Mate's The Myth of Normal, and it's backed by data.
Right. I noticed you reference Hermetic principles. Are you do you explore Thoth or Hermes or anything like that? Have you looked into those two energies?
You can't
Go ahead.
separate. It's hard to separate Gnosticism and Hermeticism because they came out of the same font, which was the Egyptian mysteries, and they're basically. Some have said they're both Gnostic systems. They just take different approaches, but yeah. So the Gnostic Jesus is very familiar, similar to the Hermes Trismegistos. They're hierophants, bringers of mysteries and gnosis.
Well, I mean, Thoth was an interesting one. I channeled him a while ago, and his admission to me was sort of like the Emerald Tablets. One was a really evident thing, and now I always I step back and start getting very objective with the transmission and information, because I get spirits and entities that want to knock on my door. Like I had Dolores Cannons a couple of weeks ago. 6 months ago, I had Bruce Lee. I did a whole expose on that. And you want to validate through your own exploration what exactly this really means, and what exactly is the purpose of you giving me this information, what me sharing it with the world, what exactly are you doing? So, you kind of get to this point where you're able to discern or affirm with great detail and knowing, and that's where I always refer to the energetics, the feeling, can really start to separate these things and move icons around and know what information you're receiving is not just a delusional state of grandeur or some psychotic episode. You're receiving information that can be of benefit or relevance. But Thoth was an interesting one. He was talking about separating Hermes from himself as being two different energies. Now, that's what I found interesting, because any research that I did from that moment moving forward, people claim that they're two of the same. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the idea of a singular being doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I think you're maybe the monad. There's no such. You and I are fragments of things.
Yeah.
So are the gods. So is Hermes. So yeah, you can't separate them, or it's already happened, or it depends where you are. So,
well, I mean,
historically, I could go down that path, but
well, I think that for the audience, Miguel's speaking on a really highly evolved perception. Like for most people, if you enter into this, hang on a second, what? Separate who? I'm John Smith from McDonald's. Like it's like understanding from a more like a quantum model, understanding fractal patterns, and then an inner weaving of what we would conceive as, the entanglement within a quantum model of understanding that all things are singular. And that singular is, what we referred back to within Taoism, this diamond, and it's another facet. So I think on a watered down level, we're talking about consciousness is Miguel and I sitting at the same table. He's at one end, I'm at the other. We've got an object in the middle of the room. He sees it one way, I see it another, but it's still the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that might help someone who's kind of like, hang on a second, what are you talking about?
Not even that. I mean, yeah, who you are is a fiction. It's a narration. You are not. There's no Miguel Conner. There's a constellation of complexes: shadow material, trauma, ancestor, programming, divinity, and it all comes together into this nice story. So that's a hard one for people to understand. They're going into the woo-woo of consciousness is like, no. And no, I mean, even the science supports this. It's we are, and I know it's hard because we've worked so hard to get out of the collective to the individual in Western society. And of course, I'm all about individual rights and do what you want, and everybody should live their life in peace. But now we have to get to the point where the individual has always been a lie too. So to the next stage.
Right.
We are all universes. We are all universes.
We're all part of that same fractal expression.
Fractal is a good way to take the fractal approach, but that's hard. People are not ready to have that conversation yet.
Hey, I'm John Smith. I like Versace and gold watches and McDonald's on the weekend, and I drive a fancy car, and I've got the charmed life, and I'm attempting to achieve the ultimate goal, which is work hard, own a home, and then die. I think that's the programming for American sort of like.
Yeah. And then I go, well, John Smith, when you're lying in bed and this dark thought from your past came, who sent it there? You didn't want it. You didn't ask for it. You've got to wake up early. You've got to, you want to sleep. You want to dream of a beautiful girl. Who sent that dark thought? Something sent that. Was it you? Was it part of you? And so forth. So why does that trauma come all of a sudden when you don't expect it? I mean, something is going under the hood. And when you look under the hood, you realize, oh my God, it's legion. That's what I say. It is legion. Something is sending information. And then you realize there are many parts of you sending you this information. But again, it's liberating. It's very liberating.
Well, it's an expansion. Once you hit it, you become very expanded. It kind of like sounds like a little bit like Bob Monroe's underlying perception of Loosh.
Yeah, that's a Gnostic idea.
Yeah.
There was this experiment that always really affected me years ago. There was a lady, she would have really terrible seizures. She couldn't function. She was a mother, but she had terrible seizures, epileptic seizures, constant. And the doctor, I think it was the late 80s, said, well, if we cut the two hemispheres of the brain, I think it will cure it. And she's like, I got nothing to lose because I'm ready to, end things. And they cut it. And after the operation, she was fine. Not a single epileptic seizure. There was only one problem. She would go in the morning to grab a dress, and her other hand would go pull it down and grab another dress. And she was like, I did not ask for this. Or she would be at the grocery store and she'd grab some food, and one hand would say no and grab another piece of another product. And the doctors will realize, oh my God, we were tinkering with the brain, and this other her came out. And now this other her is living with her conscious her. And they both have different opinions about how to live life. So imagine if you tinker with the brain, what other yous might come out.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, 100%.
Reality is disassociation from who we are. That's what we disassociate. We lie. I mean, why can't you remember where you left the keys? Part of you has the information, but decided to disassociate, to fragment that information. Now, what are the reasons? That's why we meditate. Why do I forget the keys? Why do I forget your name when objectively that information is in our head? It is objectively in our head. Why? What caused me to forget it? That's a question nobody wants to ask because it all leads to legion.
Yeah. I mean, for the audience, that's an epiphany right now. That's a light bulb moment, what Miguel's speaking on, because it really is the simplicity of that. You've created a reverse hallucination where you're asking for where the keys are. They're in your hand, but you've chosen to forget where they are. And at that present moment, on a higher level, if you refer to it as legion or maybe a guide, a specific epiphany, a channeling of consciousness, by prolonging you not getting those keys in the ignition of the car, you missed the rattling effects of some runaway semi-truck that ran through a red light that you would have driven through and be T-boned and killed like not 5 minutes earlier. Those type of
that's a good one. Yeah, of course. Yeah. We say, well, I forgot. And of course we don't forget. It's all there. Scientifically, everything we see has been recorded and we can access in our brain. The question is, why are we disassociating? Why do we forget? Why do we lie to ourselves? Why are we not ready for certain information? Now, if you ask me what the answer is, I'm going to say, know thyself, meditate. That's all I'm going to say, because it's different for you. And when you find out the answer, you won't even be around anymore. You'll be something else.
Well, that's it, right? You could disappear through your own admission. It's like, I'm out here in my temple, and literally, if I didn't have any other commitments, or for example, channeling, right? So I just finished the transcribing the 2024 version of the Tao Te Ching with Lao-Tzu. I compiled that 180 pages of profound realization inside of like 2 hours from just sitting there writing this stuff down. Now, someone would look at that and go, that's life's work. Well, perhaps maybe it is. For me, it's just sitting and listening, as you have said, listen. And so I've got a very clear understanding of where I get my information from, and it makes a huge difference when you have a sense of knowing, know thyself. And with me, I can have this monologue and dialogue and come to that realization. And so the information is evident by the proof is in the pudding. Now that's translated not only in English, but also in Mandarin and Pinyin. And then we go even deeper because the Tao Te Ching is actually a magical register for Taoists. So where there's 80, there in each incantation, it's not a verse, it's an incantation. When you read it, it will take you to another realm. There are 81 levels to each incantation, plus a hertz frequency that's associated with that incantation. And people go, holy, this makes complete sense to me. Holy crap. Why didn't I think of this before? Well, this is your moment of realization. This is where you're supposed to be right now. And you get that epiphany drop. And, you know, within it, there's the sacred infinite flower, which is a reference point of all things within a Taoist sort of alchemical processes. And that's represented within the talisman that's created that goes and ripples through the whole text. And so people look at it and go, holy, I can't stay away from this focus point. And the talisman is speaking to me. It's coming off the page. When I read it, I'm having this embodying visceral feeling of all these things are going on because you know it's real. I don't need to sell you on it. I don't need to tell you to read it. You engage with it and it has this expansive effect. And I think that's kind of like where you and I have come to our own journeys of realizing that through your own path, through my own path. This is it. You will know what you know, and you know, will express it through the feeling. Well, I want to thank you, Miguel, for sharing your time with us today. I'm going to put all your social media under this particular podcast. I want people to come and find you through your own experience. Do you do any teachings, or is it just a podcast? Do you share any sort of like sort of exploration within consciousness that you might have a website, or is it just mostly social media and YouTube?
No, I have my website, thegodabovegod.com.
Okay.
And there I do have courses, books, podcasts, but I don't, we do like one-on-one meetings once a month with certain people. I mean, if they want to discuss addiction, consciousness, Gnostic thoughts and ideas and rituals. So if somebody's interested, they can go down that path, or just, find out what other stuff I'm doing.
Yeah, this is amazing. Last question quickly. What's your definition of consciousness?
I would say the ability to have subjectivity. I think that's a quick one. That's a quick one.
Woo. And my definition is realizing you have choices.
There you go. There you go. So
we all get down to it. I want to thank you, my friend, for sharing your time with us today. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you in the next one, guys.